Ladies and gentlemen, just before we start another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, please remember that we are now on Spotify. So please head down to the link in the description and check us out on Spotify as well and leave us a review whilst you're there. On with the episode. The way to deal with setbacks and failures is to work as hard as you can every single day. So when you get given another opportunity to succeed or to progress, you are ready for it. If the opportunity comes about and you're not ready for it, then you're going to make yourself feel worse than when you actually had that setback and that failure. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. This is episode number 21. As you may have known what you're on about, James, well, I've changed the format around. Just obviously now it's in a number format. Just makes things a little bit better for me, knowing now that I want to post a lot more consistently now. So that's one thing, one of the reasons why I did it. And obviously you'll notice hopefully the thumbnails will be changed ASAP and that format will keep going. I think it looks a lot nicer as well in terms of thumbnails on YouTube and Spotify as well. So yeah, that's the first thing. This is the first podcast I've filmed when obviously everything's gone out. You know, you may be wondering, James, what you want about? Well, obviously all those podcasts had been filmed previously whilst I was whilst I had COVID. So obviously I managed to get those done whilst I was obviously stuck inside, which was fantastic. Didn't really change obviously how excited I was for this podcast. So see, this is the first one that we're doing with that, and I can't say how happy I am with those. It looks so much more professional, and I'm really, really happy that I've finally managed to do it. It's been taking me about a year to find a way of doing that. So thank you very much if you've listened, if you've shared it as well. I've got a few messages as well sort of saying that it's a lot easier to obviously listen. So thanks very much for anyone who has. On with today's episode. So this is going to be a tricky one. So I was in a bit of two minds whether to do this, because this is a topic which is quite close to my, not close to my heart, I would say, but close to me in a number of ways. And obviously we'll get into that in a bit. But I just wanted to sort of make this episode, and it also, despite what you may think, it's quite cool to these episodes because it gives me a chance to kind of voice my concerns and speak a little bit to it. Obviously I'm looking at myself, so speak to myself and get all my thoughts out, and almost makes me feel a lot better as well. It's almost like a mini therapy session, which is quite cool. For myself, I almost feel a bit more free after I've done an episode by myself as well, with guests as well, especially for talking about sort of mental health and things like that. So yeah, failures and setbacks. You've seen the title, so I'm going to break this down into two different sort of examples. One is in the sporting world, and one is in your everyday life, in education and work and things like that. So that's going to be the two areas that I'm going to give examples from. In terms of actual topic areas, I'm going to break those down in failures and setbacks, because I think, and a lot of people would agree, that they're two very different things, but they obviously fall into the same category. And I think a lot of people mistake a setback as a failure and vice versa, and they don't obviously try and handle it well. So as well as trying to discuss those and give examples from what's happened with myself, and I know that sort of it happens to individuals. A lot of people might not want to express it, but I'm going to tell you today. Again, quite brave, I think, of me. I'm not trying to big myself up, but yeah, it's a difficult thing to speak about. But so starting us off, so starting with like what could you class as a setback? We'll start as setback. I think in an everyday scenario for someone else, a setback might be an injury. Setback might be a failed exam. A setback, and you might think that's contradictory, but you know, a failure in an exam is not a complete failure. It's something that happens, and you'll get to repeat the exam. So if you get to repeat something, same thing with an injury. If you get injured, you're not obviously unless it's obviously a very serious injury, you're not going to retire. You're probably going to come back from it 90% of the time. Obviously unfortunate for those who have to retire, but so yeah, an exam, maybe a module at university, something like that. You maybe feel like you've made a mistake in life, or whatever that may be in your relationship. I don't know. But for me, I definitely think a sort of a setback for me is anything that kind of stops me from my goals. So I spoke about this in a few episodes ago. I think it was by myself as well. Sort of having goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, realistic goals, overachieving goals, so then you can shoot really, really high. So yeah, for me, that's what definition of a setback is. A definition of a setback is something that stops me, halts me, pauses my road to achieving that goal. And then a failure is where we get a stop. A failure is a complete stop where the goal has to be changed. So don't get that twisted. Obviously, a setback is a pause in the journey to get to the goal. The goal still remains the same, but it's just a pause in that journey. And a failure is obviously when you have to stop and the goal has to change based on the result of that failure, or that thing that's happened to you. So yeah, setback in terms of setbacks, like I said, in the case of my example, and I could give examples of other athletes, but I think would be a bit bizarre, or I will do, well, why not? Aside from mine. So a setback for me is a couple of things. I've had a couple of injuries recently. I've never been, unfortunately, touch wood, before my injury happened about 9 months ago. I actually hadn't had a long-term injury where I hadn't been out for, I think the most I was out for must have been about 6 weeks, when I actually broke another finger. But yeah, for most you don't know, I broke a finger pretty badly. I don't have any x-rays on this, so I can't show you, and I don't think you would want to know, but if you can see, it's still not quite straight there. The last bit of the finger is not quite sort of extended all the way. And obviously that required surgery. If you can see the scar there, I don't think you can, but that's relevant. But you had to have surgery on the finger, so that was 6 months out of the game, complete sort of, so until I could sort of start training again properly. So that was it wasn't a failure, because obviously I still had the goal of coming back and playing for Gibraltar and Swansea, but, and I'll get back into that latter one there in a second. But I think it was a time where I knew that obviously my life had stopped in terms of a sporting background. Sport, again, I'm going to use sports and everyday life as well. So from a sporting perspective, as an athlete, a lot of people think, oh, he's calling himself an athlete, but obviously I do. I'm a sportsman at the end of the day, and sport is my life. So, and obviously I train really hard, and that's, so I could call myself an athlete. Yeah. So obviously as an athlete, it kind of stopped me in that path for half a year, where I was doing absolutely nothing to do with any movement in the finger, in terms of sort of what I could do. So I couldn't hold the bat properly. I couldn't catch, couldn't bowl. It's my right hand. So I couldn't obviously bowl with that hand in case it got hit straight on. And any movement sort of really hurt. So I couldn't do that. So that was the thing. Aside from that, but I was quite good in that respect, knowing that I knew I was going to get back eventually. So for me, I knew straight away, oh, it's a setback, but obviously it's not a failure, because I know I'm going to come back from it. So obviously from that example, you guys can start to get an idea as to what I mean by sort of a temporary stop, but obviously the goals still stay the same. Obviously the goal was to keep playing cricket and to keep playing to as high as level as possible, playing for Swansea. You can see my shirt in the background there. I love playing for Swansea, so obviously that was my goal, to try and get back there ASAP. And obviously Cardiff Met, can't see the Cardiff Met shirt there, but it's right behind me. My head there you go, Cardiff Met shirt there, very proudly sat on my wall. Absolutely love those two clubs. As obviously well as playing for my country, and that's where we go onto a failure side. I'll get back onto, actually before I go into the Gibraltar side, I'll start with a setback in terms of an everyday side. For me, the setback was definitely, when I got to the end of A levels, and I'll admit I'm not on paper or book smart. I'm not very book smart about things. I think I've gone through this before. I'm very hands-on, I'm very practical, and I need to do things obviously 1,000 times sort of to be able to get it right. And I think my elder brother is the same. I haven't had him on yet, but so you know, you need to, unlike Nico, who I have had on, you know, Nico is very sort of book smart, and he can almost learn things very quickly, whereas me and my other brother tend to take a bit more time, and we have to do that extra hours to do so. Not obviously saying that Nico didn't put any effort in, but it's obviously it's a different type of style. Everyone's different. So yeah, obviously putting all this work for A levels, GCSEs I did all right. You know, I was quite happy with those, and then got into A levels where, you know, regardless of school or the type of school or whatever, you know, I didn't do well. I didn't do well at all. That was incredibly tough to take. So for the 2 years, I worked incredibly hard. I did obviously an AS level, so the first year in biology, and then the full A level in PE and Spanish. And actually, I ended up getting a D and an E for Spanish. I actually didn't end up getting the AS in the end. Obviously, I failed the exam. Obviously, failed the exam. We'll go on to that. So going, as you can imagine, not a lot of universities would accept someone onto an undergraduate degree with a D and an E. Obviously, it's still a pass. Technically, I don't actually like that. That was not a success for me. I was aiming to go to Liverpool John Moores University, be close to my elder brother, do sport and exercise science, and I didn't get that. And that was probably for me the first failure that I had in my life. And I say failure, and you're like, well, James, you said educational failure in an exam isn't necessarily a setback, but you have to look at it in the grand scheme of things. My goal was obviously to go to Liverpool John Moores, and I wasn't able to do that. So I had to change my goals to, and my goal was obviously to then get a foundation degree, which sort of made my A levels not sort of irrelevant, but sort of it made my foundation degree a lot more sort of prevalent and important for people looking at course and things like that. So yeah, even though you may think it's temporary, you know, that was a failure for me. I had to change my goals based on the result of something. So that for me was a failure. So again, or again, so I've said failure there. But then a setback on the other hand, I know I'm going a bit sort of across here, but so a setback would obviously be just an exam. You know, I've not failed loads, but I failed a few exams, and you know, I had to repeat. Again, the goal doesn't change. The goal was to pass, to do well in the year, to get 2-1 in, I think it was my second year, I think it was, during COVID. Obviously, COVID is not an excuse. I'm not making an excuse, but it's giving me a bit of a time frame. So during my second year, I failed a psychology exam, and I had to repeat it. I didn't fail. It wasn't a failure for me. I knew I could repeat it and still pass the psychology module. I'm not very, even though I'm interested in it, I'm not very sort of, it doesn't really interest me, sort of all these different theories and things. Well, it does interest me. That's probably the wrong way of saying it, but it's not what I want to do. Obviously, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so for me, it's, even though it is vital and I should be sort of brushing up on it, obviously there's other regions where I think are more important at the moment for my development as an S&C coach. So yeah, the setback, the failing the exam, that psychology exam, I knew that was a setback, not a failure. And then obviously, but I knew beforehand, you know, getting to Canterbury Christchurch University and doing a foundation year, that wasn't the failure. Obviously, the failure was not of my A level. The failure was my A levels. That was a huge failure for me. So obviously, I had to change my goals, and thankfully ended up getting a first in my foundation year, and obviously coming on to Cardiff Met, which obviously you guys know where I am now, or just finished. Sorry, undergraduate. So again, obviously, I've mentioned failure there from an educational side. So in terms of performance side, this is more recent, and it was sort of what, this is an extremely tough thing for me to say, and I think that I hope some of the guys are watching, because obviously it's tough to kind of know how someone's feeling inside, like properly inside. But when I got hurt in Malta playing for Gibraltar, I think I was on my 10th cap or my 6th. my 7th cap or something along those lines. Anyway, we were playing obviously a playoff game, and like you guys know, I think it was in my my first episode back in the series 2, obviously when I was calling it series 2, I obviously broke my finger, like I said, obviously in the beginning of this episode as well. During that time, obviously 6 months out of the game didn't help me. That again, it was a setback, not a failure, but I missed out on another tour back to Malta, coincidentally, to play the same competition, but obviously in the 2022 version. I think that tournament the year before, which I played in, was a bit delayed because of COVID. So obviously it made it a bit later, but normally it happens at the beginning of the year. So yeah, missed out on a tour. I wasn't ready yet. I knew I wasn't ready yet. So obviously wasn't able to go on that tour. Aside from obviously I was still doing exams and things, so obviously it wasn't viable. Obviously I couldn't go because I was injured anyway. But yeah, obviously some of the guys did really, really well. And fair play to them. You know, I respect every single one of the guys in the squad, and sort of that was selected. And obviously, I think you can understand where I'm going with this. I then for me, I looked and saw where the next tournament was, which I could aim towards, and that was at the end of this month, or at the end of July, European World Cup qualifiers, or European World Cup, World Cup qualifiers, Europe Region C. C, I think it is, yeah. Europe Region C, obviously against sort of those other associate nations and teams which we've actually played against quite a lot now. So, you know, watching these guys whilst I was injured, I kind of started to get an idea and started to get excited knowing that possibly I could be playing against these guys in 8 months' time. And obviously, like I said, people went away, they did well, fairness to them. And obviously I was subsequently not selected in the most recent squad for the Gibraltar national team, which was probably, out of everything that's happened in regards to sort of the way I've been feeling recently in terms of mental health, is probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. You know, education comes and goes, you know, life happens, you know, but, you know, for me, playing for Gibraltar is one of, if not the proudest thing for me as a sportsman. I have done everything I can when I put on a Gibraltar shirt, and I'm getting not emotional, but I'm getting quite sort of passionate about it here. I was gutted. I was really, really gutted. I was training. I was playing over here, obviously in Cardiff in Swansea. For Swansea, playing second team cricket. You know, the first team is unbelievable now. I'm so proud of the work that Brad Woodland's done with the Swansea team, you know, making us into an absolutely unbelievable side. You know, predominantly playing with the second team. Actually, thanks to him, because I've actually been selected in the first team for this weekend. Obviously, this is going out on Sunday, on the Sunday. So Sunday the 12th, and obviously I'll be in the first team on Sunday 11th, weather permitting. So obviously thank you to him for the opportunity. So obviously I've earned that opportunity as well, hopefully in his mind as well. So yeah, obviously I felt that I was obviously in good touch, and then obviously not being selected was obviously tough in that sense. You know, obviously the injury, I was told then that the obviously being injured for a while didn't help my cause, which obviously is completely fair enough. But obviously you can't help, or I couldn't help but feel gutted about it and feel so frustrated in the fact that I hadn't been selected. I'm not going to go into the crux of things, you know, I don't need to, you know, and I don't think that's respectful towards selectors in that sense, because I respect all of them. So, but you know, it just made me feel so bad, and I think I'm going to get into how to deal with setbacks and failures in a little bit, but obviously that for me was probably the biggest failure that I've ever had. When I had my failure at A levels, I knew that I was going to go away and still come back and get an sort of foundation and undergraduate. So that was even though it was an educational failure, it's a long-term setback. And that might be confusing, but I think you get the idea. And this for me was I'm not gonna swear, but a huge failure, huge failure, because I knew that my goal a year ago, almost today, was gone, and oh yeah, it's tough to talk about, guys, to be brutally honest with you, and I don't want you to think that I'm being a bit soft about it, but it's something which, until you actually feel it, it's so tough. I'm so proud of playing for my country. I've got it tattooed on my arm, down here, sort of down there. I've got the flag on the wall, as you can see. So obviously this hat is red because of Gibraltar. You might not know that, but yeah. So for me, that was the most gut wrenching thing for me, and I think that over the course of time, I I I will come to not accept it. I think accept it's the wrong word, because I never accept anything in that respect. It's a bit weird, and my family can agree. And obviously the coaches, which I'll get onto in a second. But I would, if I wouldn't have, obviously there's still time, and I'll get onto that in a second. But I would never been able to accept the fact that I've not been selected based on the work that I had put in. So in terms of sort of dealing with those setbacks, I'm going to sort of those failures. I think regardless whether it's a failure or a setback, you the the way you deal with it doesn't change. The way you deal with a setback is the same way that you deal with a failure, and the attitude that you have towards both of them when they happen is going to determine how successful you are at the end of that goal. That might be a bit confusing again, but when you, regardless whether you have, obviously you have a failure or a setback, you will um, have a failure. You will have a goal at the end of it. So whether, obviously you've got a failure, so that's you'll set a new goal. If you have a setback, obviously the original goal stays the same. So you've got something to work towards. That's the most important thing. So dealing with a setback and a failure are the exact same. Now, that's the thing. If it is a failure, obviously you need to understand and you need to go back to the drawing board and find out what that goal is. And then obviously set that goal. Once you've got those goals in place, then all you can do is focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. Whether it's an injury, whether it's an educational setback, or it's something that's happened in life, you need to be able to straight away understand that you can only focus on the controllables rather than the uncontrollables. Because if you focus on the latter one of those way too much, you're going to waste your time and you're going to waste your opportunity to either prove someone wrong or prove yourself right at the end of the day. And it's that simple. So that's one thing which I knew straight away when I didn't get those A levels, right, straight away, new goal, foundation year, applied for it, got it, achieved it first in that degree. Good, done. Setback, education, exam. Right, when's the reset? Okay, it's then. Let's study for it until then. Bam, passed it, done. In a performance-wise, setback, injury, bam, injuries happened. What can I do rather than what I can't do? Focus on, can I improve my leg strength, which I have done. A little bit of leg hypertrophy as well, which I managed to do as well. Bam, back from injury now, stronger than I've ever been, and quicker and fitter than I've ever been. On the other flip side of it, failure. As soon as I got the news, as soon as I found out that I hadn't been selected this time round, immediately, I obviously in the moment was frustrated, was angry, was disappointed, and was hurt. But a couple of hours later, I brushed myself off, stopped feeling sorry for myself, sent a message to every single one of the selectors and let them know that I wasn't going to give up for this tour, and that I was going to work my absolute nuts off to try and make sure that they noticed that they had made a mistake. And I sit here today, obviously sitting as first reserve, ready to go in case anyone gets hurt. Obviously, I don't wish that on any one of the squads. As I said, I respect and have mate and are mates with every single one of them guys in the squad. So I hope that obviously I don't wish anything bad on them whatsoever, but I'm here still working hard, ready in case the opportunity comes about. I think life is about opportunities and understanding that when things don't go your way, an opportunity still may arise when you least expect it. So working hard every single day and understanding that you may be given that opportunity at any moment in time is really important in progressing and to developing yourself, even if you can't see that clear goal. For me, at the moment, I can't see a clear goal in front of me because I don't know if I'm going yet or not. But for me, what drives me forward every single day and wants me to push in the gym and bat as well as I can and bowl as well as I can and field my absolute best is the fact that I could be given an opportunity to still go, which is obviously which motivates me. And I've never been more motivated to play cricket ever, which I think is, it's got its positive and negatives. I think obviously having the opportunity to play for Gibraltar first and foremost is probably is something there, but obviously it shows that I could have sort of used motivation in a different way. I've done my absolute best for Gibraltar every single time I've stepped on the field, but obviously the motivation obviously now is greater than it ever has been. So obviously could have been a little bit more motivated? No, but obviously I think it's just a different scenario. So yeah, 110%. I think you need to be able to keep working hard. So in that sense, then dealing with setbacks and failures, if I'm going to sum it up, the way to deal with setbacks and failures is to work as hard as you can every single day. So when you get given another opportunity to succeed or to progress, you are ready for it. You never know when that opportunity is going to come about. So work your nuts off every single day. Not your nuts, you work yourself. You work as hard as you can every single day to make sure that when the opportunity comes about, you are ready for it. If the opportunity comes about and you're not ready for it, then you're going to make yourself feel worse than when you actually had that setback and that failure. So and I know that for a fact that if I get given this opportunity at the end of the month, I'm going to take it with both hands and perform 110%. Cricket's a funny game, but the way that I felt recently is it doesn't compare to how I've ever felt. So from an athlete point of view. So knowing that I still have an opportunity to go, it definitely drives me. And I think if any of the coaches, if the coach, captains, vice captain, or any of the players are watching, I think they know that I'm working my absolute nuts off at the moment. I'm over here at the moment to play some cricket as well before I go over back to Gibraltar for the summer. So they know that as well. And I know that this weekend, whether it's playing on the Saturday in the first team or if that gets rained off, which hopefully it won't, the weather forecast not great, and I can play for the second team, I'm going to do my best regardless. Whether it's first team or second team, I try my absolute best no matter what. So yeah, and that's the simple thing about it. So yeah, that covers everything really. Obviously I've been quite open in that respect, and I've never been really this open in the podcast before. But hopefully I will be able to continue to do that as we go on. I've really enjoyed actually opening up a little bit more. It's given me a bit more freedom to so that when I finish the episode, I can sort of de-stress a bit and sort of know that I've voiced my concerns. And whether 5 people watch this or one person watches this or 100 people watch this, I know that I can sort of go to bed tonight and know that it's off my chest a little bit more. Now I've voiced my concerns to as many people, and a lot of my family will probably hate me after I express all these things to them, but it's a reality, and you need to be able to speak to people about different things. So yeah. Obviously, like I said, to round up, a setback, setbacks are temporary. The goal still stays the same. You've hit a blip in the road. Failures happen as well. Failures, you change the goal, you go back to the drawing board, and you do this, and obviously that's the goal already there. regardless whether that's as an athlete or a person living everyday life. You need to be able to work hard every single day once either a setback or a failure has happened, because you need to push on. Life is too short to dwell on things that have happened. And that's one thing I'm going to live by now. As soon as this podcast is finished, you can't dwell on what's happening, whether it's good or bad, because the next day is different. The next hour is different. You know, I could have a really good hour now and I go to bed and I can't really sleep for an hour. So that's the way things are in life. So you need to live in the moment, you know, work your hardest that you can, whether that's getting the right sleep you can, eating as best as you can, being the best person that you can, asking if people are all right, being the best, doing anything you can. So live in the moment and don't dwell on setbacks or failures, because they happen. Whoever says that they go about life without having a setback or a failure is lying through their teeth, and they're trying to impress you. And everyone knows that a failure or a setback happen to everyone. It's what makes them into better human beings and makes them into a more experienced human being in life. And they are able to then help people push on when other people have failures and setbacks themselves. So that's one thing that I want to finish on, is that it happens to everyone. Don't go about your life thinking that it's going to be all happy and merry, because there's going to be times where, you know, life's going to be difficult. All you need to do is keep pushing on, keep driving, and you got this. So that's where powerful beyond measure comes from. Be powerful beyond measure. Be your absolute most powerful beyond anyone's measure, whether it's coaches, teachers, or other peers that you have. So again, guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. I really appreciate you listening. Again, if this has helped one person or this has helped 100 people, I really don't mind. I just want to be able to help as many people as I can with this episode. And that's why I like doing episodes by myself as well, because it sometimes gets lost when I've got a guest on what I want to try and say, because I'm so focused on asking them the questions and giving them the spotlight which they deserve. That's why they're on here. So yeah, stay tuned for an absolutely unbelievable amount of guests coming on this podcast team. I am loving filming these podcasts at the moment, and it's probably my little passion, which a lot of people probably don't realize, is that I love every minute of doing this podcast, whether it's editing a photo, editing the video, or filming it or recording it. So, and that's why I was so proud to get this on Spotify. YouTube is brilliant, but obviously not a lot of people can listen to it if they're going out for a run or anything. So that's why I was so proud to get it out there. And obviously seeing the analytics sort of increase slowly. I think we managed to get something like 290 views last week or something like that, which is unbelievable for a fact that we only posted obviously one podcast and one sort of YouTube short. So that's unbelievable. Thank you so much, guys. And please stay tuned for another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast next Sunday at 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. Gibraltar time, and have a great rest of your day. Cheers.